A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John, chapter 10, verses 1 to 10. Passage taken from the Message version of the Bible. Jesus said to the Pharisees, "Let me set this before you as plainly as I can. If a person climbs over or through the fence of a sheep pen instead of going through the gate, you know he's up to no good. A sheep wrestler. The shepherd walks right up to the gate. The gatekeeper opens the gate to him, and the sheep recognize his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he gets them all out, he leads them and they follow because they are familiar with his voice. They won't follow a stranger's voice, but will scatter because they aren't used to the sound of it." Jesus told this simple story, but they had no idea what he was talking about. So he tried again. "I'll be explicit then. I am the gate for the sheep. All those others are up to no good. Sheep stealers. Every one of them. But the sheep didn't listen to them. I am the gate. Anyone who goes through me will be cared for, will freely go in and out, and find pasture. A thief is only there to steal and kill and destroy. I came so they can have real and eternal life, more and better life than they ever dreamed of." The Gospel of the Lord.
Reflections on the Gospel according to John chapter 10 verses 1 to 10. The sheepfold in Palestinian settings of Jesus' time were enclosures surrounded by stone walls on which were placed bundles of thorns. Brambles are allowed to grow on it to prevent sheep from exiting and thieves from entering. The enclosure could be in front of a house, built outdoors, or on the slope of a mountain. In the latter case, it was typically used by most shepherds to bring their sheep at night. One of them would be awake while others slept. Armed with a stick, he was positioned at the entrance of the fold that had no door. He squatted and in that position, blocking the access to the sheepfold. He himself became the door. Typically, he dozed off, but his presence was enough to deter the raiders from approaching the fold and to prevent the wolves from getting into the enclosure. The sheep could be approached only by whomever he allowed to pass. In the latter part of today's gospel, Jesus would say, "He is the gate." In the morning, when every shepherd stood at the door, the sheep would immediately recognize his step and voice and followed him. From this experience of his people's life, Jesus sets this parable. The true shepherd knows his sheep by name. He calls them one by one. For Jesus, anonymous masses do not exist. He takes interest in each of his disciples. He pays attention to the gifts, strengths, and weaknesses of each one. In the book of prophet Isaiah, we read, "He carries the lambs in his bosom, gently leading those that are with young." He understands their difficulties, helps and respects them. In contrast to this shepherd, the thieves and bandits appear. Who are they? They could be the religious and political leaders who were posing as attentive guides of people's welfare, but in reality, they were seeking domination, personal prestige, exploitation. Their methods were violence and lies. They steal, kill, and destroy. Three verbs that summarize the work of death. Today's gospel has an insistence on the voice of the shepherd that is heard, recognized, and immediately distinguished from the strangers. Remember, after the resurrection, the disciples could not recognize Jesus when they saw him face to face, but they recognized him for his voice. The eyes of the disciples will be misled. He will be mistaken as a wayfarer, a ghost, a fisherman, a gardener, but who heard him could not be mistaken. His voice was unmistakable. Today, this voice continues to resound, crisp and alive in the word of the gospel. It is the only one that sounds familiar to the disciple. Who is taught by the Spirit is able to discern the voice of the shepherd. Let us then be attentive to that voice that ensures us greener pastures, abundance of water, and protection from the impostors.